The elegant restaurant buzzed with laughter and clinking glasses. Everyone was celebrating Amelia's college graduation. I sat beside my daughter, watching her smile light up the room. Gregory, my husband of 28 years, stood up with his champagne glass raised high. The room quieted as everyone turned to listen to his toast. "I want to thank everyone for coming today," he began, his voice smooth and confident. Then his eyes met mine, and something cold flickered in them. "But I also need to announce something important. I've decided to start a new life without you, Clara." The words hung in the air like poison. Forks stopped midway to mouths. Conversations died instantly. 50 pairs of eyes swung between Gregory and me, waiting for my reaction. My hands began to shake. My heart pounded so hard I thought everyone could hear it. But I wouldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing me break. Not here. Not now. I stood up slowly, my legs trembling beneath me. The room held its breath. "Then I suppose it's time everyone knows the truth," I said quietly. My voice didn't sound like my own. Gregory's confident smile faltered for just a second. I grabbed my purse and walked toward the exit, my heels clicking against the marble floor. Each step felt like walking through water. Behind me, confused whispers erupted like wildfire. I heard Amelia's chair scrape against the floor as she jumped up. "Mom, wait," she called out, her voice cracking with panic. I pushed through the heavy restaurant doors into the bright afternoon sunlight. The heat hit my face, but I barely felt it. My chest tightened, and suddenly I couldn't breathe. The world spun around me as the reality of what just happened crashed down like a wave. 28 years of marriage destroyed in one sentence. In front of everyone we knew. On our daughter's special day. My knees buckled, and I grabbed the wall for support. Footsteps rushed behind me. Amelia's arms wrapped around me. "Mom, I'm so sorry," Amelia sobbed into my shoulder. We stood there together, clinging to each other while my world crumbled. "Why would he do this? Why today?" she asked through her tears. I couldn't answer. My throat felt tight and words wouldn't come. After a few minutes, I pulled back and wiped her tears with my thumb. "This isn't your day to worry about me," I whispered. "This is your graduation day." She shook her head violently. "How can I celebrate when Dad just... when he just..." Her voice broke again. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "There's something I need to tell you," she said suddenly, her voice dropping to barely a whisper. She glanced back at the restaurant nervously. "I saw Dad with someone. Few weeks ago. I didn't know how to tell you." My blood turned to ice. "Who?" I asked, though part of me already knew. Amelia's eyes filled with fresh tears. "Vanessa," she whispered. "Your friend. My godmother." The name hit me like a physical blow. Vanessa. My closest friend for 15 years. The woman who had held Amelia as a baby. Who had been at every birthday party, every holiday dinner, every important moment of our lives. The betrayal felt like a knife twisting in my chest. Suddenly everything made sense. The late business meetings Gregory claimed to have. The weekend trips he took with clients. The way Vanessa had stopped calling me as often in recent months. The whispered conversations that stopped when I entered a room. How could I have been so blind? That night, I sat alone in our bedroom while Gregory stayed out. My hands shook as I logged into our phone account online. I scrolled through Gregory's call records, my heart sinking with each page. Vanessa's number appeared everywhere. Dozens of calls, sometimes lasting hours. Late at night, early in the morning, during times he told me he was working. The evidence stared back at me from the screen, cold and undeniable. My marriage had been a lie for months, maybe longer. I wanted to scream. I wanted to drive to Vanessa's house and confront them both. I grabbed my car keys and headed for the door, rage burning through my veins like fire. But as I reached for the doorknob, I stopped. My hand hovered in the air, trembling. Something inside me shifted. Gregory wanted me broken. He wanted me to fall apart, to make a scene, to prove I was the emotional mess he probably described to Vanessa. The humiliation at the restaurant was meant to destroy me. But what if I didn't break? What if I did something he never expected? I put the keys back down and walked to my desk instead. My hands were steadier now as I opened my laptop. I searched for divorce lawyers in our city, reading reviews and qualifications late into the night. By 3 in the morning I had made my choice. At 9 o'clock the next morning, I sat in the office of Mr. Adeyemi, a respected family lawyer with a reputation for protecting his clients' interests. He listened carefully as I explained everything. "Do you remember your prenuptial agreement?" Mr. Adeyemi asked, flipping through the papers I had brought. He nodded. "Gregory insisted on it before we married. He wanted to protect his business interests." Mr. Adeyemi smiled slightly. "Did you read Clause 17? I shook my head. I had signed the papers years ago without studying every detail. Clause 17 states that in cases of proven infidelity and financial misconduct, the wronged party can reclaim full ownership of marital assets, he explained. My heart began to race. Including the house and business shares. Hope flickered in my chest for the first time since yesterday. Over the following weeks, I became a detective in my own life. I checked bank statements and found strange transfers to something called Meridian Consulting Services. I searched online and discovered that Vanessa owned Meridian Consulting. Gregory had been funneling our money to her company. Thousands of dollars over 6 months. I printed everything, creating files of evidence that grew thicker each day. At home, Gregory acted like nothing had changed, except now he treated me like a stranger. "You should start looking for your own place," Gregory said one evening, not even looking up from his phone. "Once Amelia leaves for her summer program, there's no reason for you to stay here." His words were casual, cruel, like he was discussing the weather. I said nothing, just nodded and left the room. But inside, my resolve hardened into steel. Meanwhile, Amelia was struggling. Gregory had been calling her, painting me as controlling and unreasonable. "Dad says you're trying to turn me against him," she told me one afternoon, her voice uncertain. "He says you're being dramatic about everything." It hurt to see her torn between us. I wanted to tell her everything I had discovered, but I held back. She didn't need to carry that burden yet. "I'm not trying to turn you against anyone," I said gently. "I just want you to be happy and focus on your future." That seemed to satisfy her, but I could see the confusion in her eyes. A few days later, I was organizing documents when Amelia walked into my room. She froze when she saw the folder open on my desk, papers spread everywhere. Bank statements, phone records, legal documents. "Mom, what is all this?" Amelia asked, moving closer. Her eyes scanned the papers, widening as she read. I watched her face change as understanding dawned. She picked up a bank statement showing transfers to Vanessa's company. Then another showing a secret account in both their names. "He's been stealing from you," she whispered, her voice shaking. "He's been lying about everything." Tears filled her eyes, but these were different from before. These were tears of anger. "He used me, Mom. All those phone calls where he acted like the victim. He made me doubt you. He made me think you were the problem." She sank onto my bed, papers still clutched in her hands. "I'm so sorry I believed him." I sat beside her and pulled her close. "You have nothing to apologize for. He's your father. You wanted to believe the best in him." We sat together in silence, both processing the full weight of Gregory's betrayal. Then we heard footsteps on the stairs. The bedroom door swung open, and Gregory stood there, his face darkening as he saw the documents spread across the bed. "What the hell is this?" Gregory shouted, striding into the room. His face turned red with rage. "You've been spying on me, going through my private information." He grabbed papers from the bed, his hands shaking with anger. "This is controlling behavior, Clara. This is exactly why I need to leave you." I stood up calmly, looking him directly in the eyes. These are our joint accounts, Gregory. Nothing private about them. And the phone records came from our family plan. Amelia stood beside me, her jaw set. Dad, how could you? How could you steal from Mom and lie to all of us? Gregory's expression shifted, becoming defensive. You don't understand the situation, Amelia. Your mother has made my life miserable for years. She's driven me to— Don't, I interrupted, my voice sharp and cold. Don't you dare blame me for your choices. You made your decisions. You chose to betray our family. Gregory's face twisted with fury. He grabbed a glass from my dresser and threw it against the wall. It shattered, pieces flying across the floor. This is my house, he screamed. But I didn't flinch. I just stared at him until his anger seemed to deflate, replaced by something that looked almost like fear. That night, he packed his bags and left for Vanessa's house. For the first time in 28 years, I slept alone in our bed. The silence was suffocating. The empty space beside me felt enormous, like a canyon I might fall into. I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, replaying our entire marriage in my mind. I remembered when we first met at a company picnic. Gregory had been charming, ambitious, full of dreams. I had supported every single one of those dreams. When he wanted to start his own business, I worked extra hours to keep us stable. When he needed investors, I convinced my father to help. When he doubted himself, I was there with encouragement and belief. What had I gotten in return? Betrayal. Public humiliation. But as the night wore on, something changed inside me. The sadness began to transform into determination. I wasn't the broken woman Gregory expected. I was stronger than he ever realized. The next morning, I sat at my kitchen table with a notebook and began writing everything down. Every sacrifice I had made. Every lie he had told. Every piece of evidence I had gathered. My story. My truth. As I wrote, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. You don't know what you've started, Clara. The threatening message made my hands shake. I stared at the words on my screen, my heart racing. Another message came through. Drop this before you regret it. Then another. Some things are better left alone. I knew it had to be Vanessa. The messages continued over the next few days, each one more menacing than the last. But instead of scaring me into silence, they made me angry. I forwarded every single message to Mr. Adeyemi. This is harassment, he said when we met. And it actually helps our case. Save everything. 2 weeks later, he called with urgent news. Gregory is trying to liquidate company assets. He's moving money, trying to hide it before the divorce proceedings begin. But Mr. Adeyemi had been faster. Using the prenuptial agreement's infidelity clause, he had already filed motions to freeze all of Gregory's accounts. He won't be able to touch anything until the court decides, he explained. I felt a surge of satisfaction. Gregory's carefully planned escape was falling apart. That afternoon my front door burst open. Gregory stormed in, his face purple with rage. What did you do? Gregory shouted, waving papers in my face. The bank froze everything. My business accounts, my credit cards, everything. I stayed seated at the kitchen table, calm. I protected what's mine, I said simply. You tried to steal it, so I stopped you. Gregory slammed his fist on the table. You're ruining everything. Vanessa and I had plans. We were going to start fresh, build something new together. The mention of Vanessa made my stomach turn, but I kept my expression neutral. You should have thought about that before you decided to embezzle marital funds, I replied. Or before you chose to humiliate me in front of everyone we know. Gregory's anger shifted to desperation. He pulled out a chair and sat across from me. Clara, please. We can work this out. You don't understand how unhappy I've been. Vanessa makes me feel alive again. I looked at the man I had loved for nearly 3 decades. The man who had promised to stand by me forever. Now he sat before me, begging not for forgiveness, but for money to run away with my former best friend. You already left me, Gregory, I said quietly. I'm just cleaning up after you. His face hardened. The next morning I filed for divorce officially. Within days, everything exploded online. Photos of Gregory and Vanessa together appeared on social media. Someone had taken pictures of them at restaurants, holding hands, kissing in parking lots. The posts spread like wildfire through our community. Friends, neighbors, business associates, everyone saw them. Gregory's business partners began distancing themselves. His reputation crumbled overnight. People stopped returning his calls. Meetings were cancelled. The public humiliation he had tried to give me had boomeranged back onto him with devastating force. Vanessa's life fell apart too. Her consulting business lost clients. Her social circle, which had overlapped with mine, turned their backs on her. The woman who had once been welcomed everywhere was now whispered about in grocery stores and avoided at community events. Gregory called me furious. "Did you leak those photos?" he demanded. "Did you destroy my reputation to get revenge?" I almost laughed. "I didn't need to do anything, Gregory. You destroyed yourself. People saw who you really are, and they made their own choices." The truth was, I had no idea who posted those photos. Maybe it was a friend defending me. Maybe it was someone with their own grudge. It didn't matter. Justice had found its own way. The divorce hearing finally arrived. I walked into the courthouse with Mr. Adeyemi, my evidence files organized and ready. Gregory and Vanessa sat on the opposite side of the courtroom, both dressed professionally, trying to look respectable. Vanessa wore a conservative dress and minimal makeup, so different from the glamorous image she usually projected. They whispered to each other, occasionally glancing my way with expressions that mixed confidence and contempt. The judge entered and everyone stood. My heart pounded as the proceedings began. Mr. Adeyemi presented our case methodically. He showed the secret transfers to Vanessa's company. He displayed the hidden joint account Gregory and Vanessa had opened together. He played recordings of threatening messages. He presented phone records proving the affair. Gregory's lawyer tried to argue that these were business transactions, that the relationship started after Gregory had emotionally separated from me. But Mr. Adeyemi was prepared for everything. The prenuptial agreement doesn't distinguish between emotional and physical separation, he explained to the judge. Clause 17 is clear. Infidelity and financial misconduct allow for complete asset reallocation. The judge reviewed the evidence carefully, his expression growing darker as he read. Finally he looked up. "This hearing is adjourned until next week while I review all materials. In the meantime, all of Mr. Gregory's assets remain frozen." Gregory and Vanessa left the courthouse in silence. Through the window, I watched them argue in the parking lot. Gregory gesticulated wildly while Vanessa crossed her arms, her face tight with anger. Their perfect romance was already showing cracks. Over the next few days, their situation worsened. Vanessa discovered her credit cards weren't working. The apartment they had been renting together, paid for with Gregory's now frozen accounts, was locked by the bank. They were forced to move in with Vanessa's elderly mother, sharing a small guest room. The glamorous new life they had envisioned had become a nightmare. Then something unexpected happened. My phone rang with an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Clara." Vanessa's voice was shaky, uncertain. "I need to talk to you." Every instinct told me to hang up, but curiosity won. "Talk," I said coldly. "I made a terrible mistake," she began. "Gregory lied to me about everything. He told me you two were already separated, that the divorce was your idea. He said you were emotionally abusive." I said nothing, just listened. "I have more evidence," Vanessa continued. "Documents showing he falsified tax returns, hid money from business partners. Things you don't know about yet. I'll give them to you. I need immunity from any charges." I met Vanessa 3 days later in a coffee shop across town. She looked terrible. Dark circles under her eyes, her usually perfect hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She slid a folder across the table without saying hello. "Everything's in there," she said quietly. Bank statements from accounts I didn't know about. Emails where he admits to fraud. Tax documents he altered. I opened the folder and began reading. My hands tightened on the papers as I realized the extent of Gregory's deception. He had been stealing not just from me, but from his own business partners. "Why are you giving me this?" I asked, looking up at her. Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. "Because I'm tired of being lied to. And because you deserve to know the truth about who you were married to." She paused, wiping her eyes. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness. What I did was unforgivable. But at least I can help you now." I took the folder and stood to leave. "Thank you for this," I said. "But it doesn't change what you did. You betrayed 15 years of friendship." Vanessa nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I know. I'll regret it for the rest of my life." I walked away without looking back. The next court hearing was devastating for Gregory. Mr. Adeyemi presented Vanessa's evidence along with everything we had already compiled. The judge's expression grew progressively darker as each document was revealed. Tax fraud. Embezzlement from business partners. Hidden offshore accounts. Gregory's lawyer stood up to object, but then suddenly began packing his briefcase. "Your Honor, I'm withdrawing from this case," he announced. "I cannot in good conscience continue representing this client." The courtroom buzzed with shocked whispers. Gregory's face went white. The judge banged his gavel for silence. "Mr. Gregory, you'll need to find new representation," the judge said sternly. "But given the severity of these findings, I'm making my ruling now. All marital assets are awarded to Clara. Additionally, I'm referring this case to the district attorney for criminal investigation." Gregory jumped to his feet. "This is insane. You can't do this." The judge's eyes turned cold. "Sit down, Mr. Gregory, or I'll hold you in contempt." As the bailiff led Gregory from the courtroom, he turned and glared at me with pure hatred. "You'll regret this, Clara," he hissed. But I felt nothing except relief. Justice had finally come. Months passed. I slowly rebuilt my life piece by piece. The house felt different now, peaceful instead of tense. I redecorated, removing everything that reminded me of Gregory. I painted walls, bought new furniture, and filled the space with things that made me happy. Amelia graduated from law school, inspired by everything we had been through. She was brilliant in court during her internship, fierce and uncompromising. Watching her argue cases filled me with pride. I started a small scholarship fund in Amelia's name for young women pursuing education after family hardship. The first recipient was a single mother who reminded me of myself, strong, determined, refusing to be defeated by circumstances. Meanwhile, Gregory's life had completely fallen apart. His business partners sued him for fraud. He lost everything in those lawsuits. His reputation, his career, his money. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he was living in a cheap apartment, working odd jobs to survive. Vanessa had left him months ago, moving to another state to escape the scandal. One evening, my phone buzzed with a text from Gregory's number. "Please, can we talk? I need to see you." My finger hovered over the delete button, but something made me respond. "Tomorrow, 2 o'clock. Coffee shop on Main Street." Gregory arrived at the coffee shop looking like a shadow of his former self. He had lost weight, his clothes hung loosely on his frame, and gray streaked his hair heavily. His confident posture was gone, replaced by hunched shoulders and downcast eyes. He sat across from me, barely able to meet my gaze. "Thank you for meeting me," he said quietly. His voice was hoarse, tired. "I didn't think you would." I sipped my coffee and waited. I wouldn't make this easy for him. "I've been going to therapy," he continued, fidgeting with his cup, trying to understand why I destroyed everything. Why I hurt you the way I did. He paused, seeming to gather courage. "I was terrified of getting old. of becoming irrelevant. Vanessa made me feel young again, important, like I still mattered. His voice cracked. But I lost everything that actually mattered. My family. My daughter's respect. You. Tears streamed down his face. I'm so sorry, Clara. I know those words mean nothing now. But I need you to know I understand what I did. I destroyed the best thing in my life because I was a coward and a fool. I watched him cry, feeling oddly detached. This broken man was someone I once loved, but that person seemed like a stranger now. I forgive you, Gregory, I said finally. His head snapped up, hope flickering in his eyes. But that doesn't mean I'll ever forget, or that there's any chance of us reconciling. The hope died as quickly as it had appeared. I know, he whispered. Is there any way to fix things with Amelia? I considered his question. That's between you and her. But I won't stop her from talking to you if she chooses to. He nodded, seeming to accept this small mercy. You look good, Clara. Happy. That's what I came to say. You deserved better than what I gave you. He stood up slowly like an old man. Goodbye, Clara. Goodbye, Gregory. I watched him walk away, shoulders bent under the weight of his regrets. I felt nothing but peace. The man who had tried to destroy me had only destroyed himself. I had survived. More than survived, I had thrived. That afternoon, Amelia called with exciting news. She had been accepted to a prestigious law firm in the city. We need to celebrate, Mom, she said, her voice bubbling with excitement. Let's go out to dinner. Somewhere special. I knew exactly where to go. I made reservations at the same elegant restaurant where Gregory had humiliated me 2 years ago. The same private room where my life had shattered. Amelia and I dressed up, both wearing beautiful dresses and our brightest smiles. When we walked in, the staff recognized me. The manager approached immediately, looking uncomfortable. Mrs. Clara, welcome back. We're honored to have you. I smiled warmly, easing his discomfort. Thank you. I have good memories here. My daughter graduated from college in this room. His eyebrows rose in surprise, but he smiled and led us to our table. The room was decorated beautifully, soft lighting and fresh flowers everywhere. We ordered champagne and toasted to Amelia's success. I'm so proud of you, sweetheart, I said, raising my glass. You've overcome so much and achieved incredible things. Amelia's eyes misted. I learned from the best. You showed me what real strength looks like, Mom. As we enjoyed our meal, laughing and sharing stories, I looked around the room. This place no longer held pain. I had reclaimed it, transformed it into a space of celebration and joy. My phone buzzed with a text. I glanced down and saw it was from the restaurant manager. There's someone at the bar who asked me to deliver a note to you. Through the restaurant's doorway I could see the bar area. There, sitting alone with a glass of whiskey, was Gregory. He looked even worse than he had at the coffee shop. His face haggard and drawn. The manager brought over a folded piece of paper. Opened it. Congratulations to Amelia. And to you. You won, Clara. You deserve everything good that comes to you. Gee, I folded the note and put it in my purse. Amelia noticed my expression change. What is it, Mom? I hesitated, then told her. She looked toward the bar, her jaw tightening. Do you want to leave? No, I said firmly. This is our celebration. He doesn't get to take this moment from us. But Amelia stood up. I'll be right back. Before I could stop her, she walked toward the bar. I watched nervously as she approached Gregory. He looked up, surprise and hope crossing his face. They talked for several minutes. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I saw Gregory's shoulders shake with sobs. Amelia remained standing, her posture straight and firm. Finally, she said something that made him nod slowly. Then she walked back to our table. What did you say? I asked as she sat down. I told him I appreciate the apology, but trust has to be earned back slowly. And that I'm proud to be your daughter. Tears filled my eyes at Amelia's words. I also told him that his biggest mistake wasn't just betraying you, she continued. It was underestimating you. He thought you were weak, that you'd crumble. Instead, you showed everyone what a strong woman looks like. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You're my hero, Mom. We finished our dinner with lighter conversation, deliberately leaving the heaviness behind. When we finally left the restaurant, I glanced back at the bar. Gregory was gone. As we walked to our cars, Amelia hugged me tightly. Thank you for never giving up, she whispered. And thank you for showing me that a woman doesn't need anyone to complete her story. I drove home that night feeling lighter than I had in years. The weight of betrayal, anger, and pain had finally lifted. I wasn't defined by what Gregory had done to me. I was defined by how I had risen above it. At home, I sat in my living room with a cup of tea, thinking about the journey from that terrible day at the restaurant to now. The path had been painful, filled with tears and rage and moments when I wanted to give up. But I hadn't given up. I had fought for myself, for my dignity, for my future. And I had won. I began mentoring other women going through divorces and betrayals. My story had spread through local community groups, and women started reaching out for advice. I met them in coffee shops and listened to their pain. I shared my experience and gave them hope that they too could survive and thrive. One woman, Patricia, reminded me so much of myself. Her husband had left her for someone younger after 30 years of marriage. She came to our first meeting broken and defeated. I feel like my life is over, she sobbed. I gave him everything and now I have nothing. I took her hands in mine. Your life isn't over. It's just the beginning of a new chapter. You're stronger than you know. Over months, I watched Patricia transform. She got a good lawyer, protected her assets, and eventually started her own small business. When she sent me a photo of herself at her new shop's opening, her smile was radiant. Thank you for showing me the way, she wrote. My inbox filled with similar messages from women I had helped. Their stories of survival and success became my greatest accomplishment. More than the money I had won in court, more than the house or the business shares. Helping other women rise from their own ashes gave my suffering meaning. One evening, a news alert appeared on my phone. Local business owner files for bankruptcy. The photo showed Gregory's former company building. I read that his partners had finally forced him out completely. 6 months later, I found myself back at the same restaurant once more. But this time I had organized a fundraiser there for my women's scholarship program. The room was filled with successful women. Lawyers, business owners, teachers, artists. Women who had overcome their own challenges and were now giving back to help others. I stood at the podium to give a speech, looking out at all the faces. Strong, beautiful, resilient faces. 2 years ago, I stood in this very room while my life fell apart. I began. The room grew quiet. My husband publicly announced he was leaving me, trying to humiliate me in front of everyone I knew. He thought he could break me. I paused, letting the words sink in. But here's what he didn't understand. You can't break someone who refuses to see themselves as broken. You can't destroy someone who chooses to rebuild. Applause rippled through the room. Today, I'm not here as a victim of betrayal. I'm here as a survivor who became a thriver. And every woman in this room has that same strength inside her. As I looked around at the smiling faces, I felt complete. The journey from victim to survivor to mentor had been long and painful, but worth every tear. My story had come full circle in this room, from devastation to triumph, from the end of one life to the beginning of something better. I raised my glass for the final toast of the evening. To new beginnings, I said, my voice strong and clear. To the strength we find in ourselves when everything else falls away. To the women we become when we refuse to let anyone else write our story. The room echoed back. To new beginnings. And in that moment, surrounded by women who understood the power of resilience, I realized something profound. Gregory hadn't destroyed me that day 2 years ago. He had freed me. Freed me to become the woman I was always meant to be. Strong, independent, unbreakable. The woman who turned humiliation into purpose. pain into power, and ending into beginning. I had started a new life. But this time it was entirely on my own terms.